Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Oxy Live, presented by Oxy Arts, Occidental College, and LAist. What a night we have ahead of us. I'm so excited to be here. My name is Lisa Casino. I am an Occidental trustee, and I'm an advocate of the arts and a major supporter of Oxy Live. Tonight marks a very, very special occasion. It's our last event of an inaugural season that wouldn't have been possible without the support of many of you here tonight who embraced this idea and joined us on this journey. Personally, I'd like to thank Meldia Yasayan, Director of Oxy Arts, for her creative leadership, President Elam for his amazing support, and of course, we couldn't have done this without Paul Holdengräber and his just incredible talent. So you'll get to thank him in a minute too. As some of you may know, and as the color of my hair probably indicates, my journey with Occidental College began several years ago. It was here that I found not only an academic institution, but a community that fosters growth, creativity, and the pursuit of curiosity. Very important things. Over the years, Occidental has continued to hold a very special place in my heart, shaping my values and inspiring me to give in whatever way that I can. When I was first approached by Meldia about supporting the Oxy Live program, I was immediately drawn to the mission of bringing thought-provoking conversations and cultural experiences to campus. The idea of creating a space where ideas could flourish and minds could expand resonated deeply within me. So tonight, I am incredibly honored to introduce our esteemed guests who embody the essence of Oxy Live and what Oxy Live stands for. In conversation with the brilliant Paul Holdengräber, we have the privilege of welcoming an icon of contemporary art and innovation and a personal shero of mine, Laurie Anderson. Keep going. Before they get started, although neither of them need any introduction, let me do a tiny introduction, and I'll make it quick so we can get started. Laurie is a prolific artist whose groundbreaking career spans writing, directing, composing, visual art, and not least of all, music. Laurie has truly transcended boundaries. She's crafted films, installations, received multiple Grammy nominations, won 2, published 10 books, exactly. Where am I in my notes here? It's just too exciting. And here's a great one. She was the first artist in residence at NASA. Her influence extends to film scores, dance compositions, and curation of festivals worldwide. Major retrospectives of her work have been shown in venues including the Smithsonian's Hirshhorn Museum, Mass MoCA, and the Moderna Museet in Stockholm. Anderson's pioneering efforts in virtual reality, AI, and ongoing projects like The Art of Falling and the forthcoming opera Arc underscore an enduring impact on global culture. Laurie has captivated audiences around the world with her fearless exploration of the human experience. She challenges, she inspires, she is a true visionary in a world of art and culture. Yay, Laurie. Tonight, Laurie is in conversation with the singular Paul Holdengräber, a consummate interviewer and unparalleled artistic interlocutor. Paul's most recently served as founding executive director of Onassis Foundation, Los Angeles. Prior to that, for 14 years, Paul founded and directed the New York Public Library's esteemed Live from the NYPL cultural series, where he hosted and interviewed over 600 iconic figures. Before his tenure at the library, Holdengräber was the founder and director of the Institute for Art and Cultures at the Los Angeles County Museum of Art and a fellow at the Getty Research Center. He holds a PhD in comparative literature from Princeton University and has taught at Princeton, Williams College, Claremont Graduate University, among others. Paul's dedication to the arts has been recognized internationally. In 2003, the French government named Holdengräber Chevalier of Arts and Letters and then promoted him in 2012 to the rank of Commander of Arts and Letters. In 2010, the President of Austria awarded Paul the Austrian Cross of Honor for Science and Arts. And now, please welcome Laurie and Paul.
Hi, Paul.
Hello, Laurie.
I love that you always bring packed stacks of books.
Yeah.
That's so wonderful. And papers and things.
Papers and handwritten notes. And
Yeah.
The theater director and film director, Peter Brook, once he reports the following. Once a computer was asked, "What is truth?" It took a very long time before the reply came. And then, I will tell you a story. How does that resonate for you? How does that resonate for you?
Resonate. I don't know, Dave. Are you sure you want to ask that, Dave? You know, I just love that 2001 computer didn't talk like a robot. You know, he was a guy with a resonant voice. So it was a little odd. You know, so many people are, I guess, worried about talking computers now. But they've been talking for a long time. You know? And I was just remembering, how do you pronounce his name, the guy who did RUR, Rossum Universal Robots? Kapich? Is it written in 1923, a play about robots and how robots are going to take all our jobs. This was 100 years ago, plus one. So, and it's a beautiful play, but very paranoid.
What about this notion of asking a computer what is truth and having as a response, I will tell you a story?
I know a lot of people like that.
Pardon?
I know a lot of people who think that. It's a perfect way of getting around saying truth is, you know, what are you going to say to that? What can you possibly say? Everything is, what can you say? It's like asking what is real. You know,
what is real?
Real. It's like just like that. Let me tell you a story about it. You know, I think this is a strange ring in here.
A little bit of
yeah, a little bit of ring. You could probably
maybe a bit of feedback.
Yeah, we could have that a little bit quieter.
Could be that.
Don't worry,
Could
I'm
be
an audio professional.
What? Could be the question I asked you. That creating a certain form of echo, a friction.
Mm-hmm. Friction, feedback. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love feedback.
You love feedback.
I do. And
why is that?
Well, because it shows you the size of the room, and this is what I like about sound. You can hear how big things are. I was once asked to make a lobby sound bigger. This is who was it? Philip Stark was working on a hotel. Yeah, and he needed to have his lobby feel grander. So they couldn't expand the size. So, you know, when you come into a place, you hear how big it is. Even maybe before you look at it and see how big it is, you hear it. So I designed some things that would just make it quite resonant and sound like, whoa, this is a really magnificent lobby. And it's really just a crummy little place, you know.
What did you do? I'm curious.
No, just some filters that would give it some, you know, reverb, just to, you know, doesn't sound like a big room. Now it does. Yeah.
Well, I can clap very loudly because
Yes,
my
you can.
father, in 1934, was a claquette.
What's a claquette?
I'll tell you, there were 10 people hired at the Opera House in Vienna. My father was born in 1918, so he would have been 16. He was the opera goers in Vienna at that time, he told me, were really tough. And so they hired 10 people to encourage others to find the performance good. So I can do it very loudly.
Yes, congratulations.
Which it annoys my children greatly when I go out with them and somebody in front is going, you know, not a good thing. Now, I think eavesdropping is something you're very interested in.
Well, I love the term. What does that even mean? You're hanging from an eave and like, listening in on somebody's window? Or, is that what it is? Where does it come from? Eavesdropping. You know, I guess you're holding on to the roof. Are you? What is it? I mean, and you're listening. Where? What does it have to do with the eaves? Eavesdropping is a hobby of mine, yes, it's true. I like it very much, you know, and I just like hearing people talk. You know, I just love how people talk. So, yeah.
Connected in some form or fashion to stories one can make up.
Well, everyone's making up a story all the time. I mean, and then it's just when you try to live it out that makes it difficult. So writing the story and thinking like, what should my life be or whatever. And then it can be easy to concoct that idea, but then actually trying to stay within the storyline can be hard, you know, especially if you make it, you know, a bit, the design a bit too big to fill the shoes.
I read, Laurie, the following statement of yours, which makes me feel particularly kindred to you. You said, don't remember where or when or to whom, but not if. You said, I learn about things by talking about them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I often love quoting the Dadaist writer Tristan Tzara, who said that thought is made in the mouth. Mm-hmm. And I'm wondering if you could elaborate a little bit on this idea of speaking and discovering. I'm always reminded that the word infant literally means a being who doesn't yet have the phatic quality of speech. Mm-hmm. An infant is someone who can't yet talk.
Well, yeah, I mean, there's a lot to think about with that, because I do think that being able to articulate something gives it shape, but also a lot of things can't be articulated. They can't really be put into words, although I love it when you can have a very sharp representation of what it is as a word. But that's what music is for. That's what dancing is for. That's what, I mean, there's a lot of ways it's what smell is for. Things that just that you can't put into words. You can't find that thing. And so when you think, what is a thought? I'll tell you a story. It was one recently. I was doing a 10-day meditation, which I've been doing for many years, since the 70s, going to these places and sitting in silence for 10 days. And at the beginning, it was very hardcore. You would do it for 18 hours a day.
Total silence.
Yes, you would wake up at 4, and you would sit and meditate. And this is Vipassana meditation, a kind of fairly new form of meditation from Thailand about 500 years ago, based on the body. So a lot of other things connected to that. But in fact, no, I'll tell you one thing, because this is reminding me a little bit of a shrink-patient relationship right now, what we're having. So
Who is who?
I'm not sure. We're trading off, you know. And so this particular form of meditation is based on pain. It's based on the fact that when something happens to you and you want to scream and you don't, you put it somewhere. And this is the idea that, and in the ideas you try to find it. In talk therapy, you find it through stories. And you kind of go back into your childhood and you find the time that happened, and you try to... I don't, for myself, don't trust that storytelling method, because I'm a little too glib in terms of like, oh, I'll spin a story, and it didn't necessarily have happened to me, so it could happen to anyone. So I just find it interesting to see how you can put those kinds of things into words. Pain is a different thing. So, for example, the way this works is, let's say, these feelings then are codified in your body, physically, is the idea, and that you have to go into these long periods of stillness to find them. For example, let's say anger, for example, goes right to the jaw, and you lock the jaw. Jealousy, right to the liver. Loss, and right to the heart. So you, as you're sitting here, many, many days, many hours, are feeling these things in your body. So anyway, I went to this meditation thing, and originally because a friend said, I was really having trouble concentrating. My mind was all over the place, and I went to this thing, and my mind became like a beam. I could focus on things. I could like move it over here, look at that, move it here, and I was like, whoa, I want a mind like a beam. So I went to this place, and
Who doesn't?
yeah, who does? Well, some people don't.
Yeah.
So as I'm talking to the people as they're greeting me there, they said, why are you here? And I said, I'm here to get a mind like a beam. And they said, no, well, I think you're here because you're in pain. I said, I'm not in pain. And they said, you're in pain. And I said, no, it's a beam. And then they said, pain. And I said, beam. And I said, let's not start with an argument, you know. Anyway, what happened was, it was about that. It was about how you store your experience in your body. And you sit there, and you are a library of pain. It is all very, very elegantly placed in your body. I trust that. So anyway, what was happening with this story about thought was, in this tradition, as many meditation traditions, maybe most, the idea is your mind is a clear sky, and thoughts are clouds. So I'm sure many of you are familiar with this technique of that, you know, a thought comes by and you don't get involved with it. You let it go. Another thought comes by, you let it go. And after a certain amount of time of this, I was in a rather deep sort of feeling state in that. I came back up out of that, and so it was like all of these. I couldn't remember my name for a very long time. I'm just talking 15 seconds. 15 seconds is a very long time to kind of,
Not to remember that.
wow, I don't know my name. No, I really don't know. Do I have a piece of paper with my name on it somewhere? I got completely forgotten. And then I was just in this landscape of like discarded thoughts. It was just like, it was going on forever. And then I saw a very kind of crummy banner, and it had my name on it in capital letters. And I was like, that is so stupid. What does that have to do with this landscape of discarded thoughts? Nothing, really. And that had a couple more chapters in it. There was another one where there was a landscape of different art forms. This followed along quite fast. All of these things, works of art in all media that had been made for many different reasons and purposes and styles and so on. And another crummy banner shows up. I'm talking about this just how to put thoughts into words, was the word primitivism. And again, I thought, why would you call all these things made for all these different reasons? Why do you need a label that says that? So anyway, it's something I spent a lot of time working on and thinking about, is how words work and what they really are, and how they relate to thoughts. So this is one of my main things that I'm working on now.
Certainly when you were talking about this, a lot of images went through my head.
What kind?
I'll tell you. Discarded thoughts. Your work is filled with words that appear and disappear, that are written, that appear for a second and they're gone, and definitions that are problematic, question marks, following a definition, maybe a discomfort altogether with definition. That wonderful line of Lawrence Stern I've always loved, where he says to define is to distrust. And you yourself, when you're asked, who are you? What do you do? And you've given these wonderful responses. You say to artists who ask you, how to define themselves, just say you're a multimedia artist, because you are, and it means nothing. And everybody is a multimedia artist in some form or fashion. So this notion of arriving at a formula of who we are, we're somewhere else. And we're not, you won't find us where you're looking for us.
Well, in terms of identity and that kind of thing, I mean, this is, my life's work is moving against that. I mean, I am not the kind of artist who wants to express myself, and, so people get to know me. I don't care if you know me, really. It's like, it's not why I'm doing things, and I'm doing things to go, look over there, look at that thing over there. That's so weird.
Pretty interesting, yeah.
Yeah, look over there, and the best things that somebody could say about the work that I do is like, I know exactly what you were talking about. I had that same idea, just a slightly different version of it, and I'm not trying to make a new Paisley or a new, like, wow, I never saw anything like that before. I'm trying to make, I would call it maybe resonance, something like that resonates with people. They kind of like see something similar. So with these, and really more than that, just to find out how this is working. And just one example of that is, just back to this meditation idea for a second, is I was also working with a Swiss guy, a teacher, and he did not use the mind as a sky because he's Swiss, and he said the mind is, let's say the mind is a lake, like a little Swiss lake, and and the thoughts are not clouds. Let's say they're little sailboats. So you see a little sailboat comes across the lake. You look at it. You let it go. Here comes another sailboat. You watch it, let it go. you try to empty your mind, but more than that, he took another step, which I thought was really interesting. He said, what, may I ask, is the wind that's blowing that boat? In other words, what kind of wind is it? A soft summer breeze, or is it fierce? You know, what's making you? What's making you? What's blowing this whole thing? What's the engine? What's your engine? Why are you doing this? So I find that very satisfying to sort of try to think of that. He also has some really good examples of how thoughts try to get your attention. If you're trying to get rid of them, your thoughts always try to be more appealing, like, I am so interesting, you should really come over here and I got something interesting to say to you. You're probably never going to hear. Or, I'm the last of my kind. That's crack for me. I'm like, oh, what's your name? Where did you come? I mean, what do you mean, last of your kind? I mean, so,
Can you give me an example? I mean, I love this idea of thoughts calling out.
they do, you have thoughts calling out to you all the time. I know that.
Yeah.
Yeah, all those books are calling out to you. Yeah. Stacks
I
of
sometimes feel like saying, please.
Please what?
Leave me alone. I mean, you know, enough already.
Well, check into this meditation thing.
10 days.
10 days, you could do 3 years.
Do you write during that time?
No. Writing is thinking. You're not supposed to.
Writing is a way of escaping.
Yeah. Well, no, they wouldn't say that, I don't think. What am I saying? I don't think it's quite like that. But it is a form of shaping words, so it's probably not the thing. That's not the goal of this exercise. That said, I mean, when somebody says something so beautifully and precisely, when a poet writes something that's so concise and simple, it's thrilling. You know, I'm not saying I don't love words, I really do. I mean, one of our favorite poets, we just were talking about how we agreed that Jane is.
I feel like we should read her just.
You were going to read one of her poems.
Yeah, just because we both, for no other reason than that we love her. I think that's a good enough reason.
You think it is?
It's a good enough reason that we're reading her for no other reason than we love her.
I do love her. She's a friend, but I would read her because it's thrilling to hear a word that's so.
No. That's what I mean.
Her, yeah.
No, not we love
personally.
her,
Okay.
but we love her poetry, and we love
both her and
yeah,
her poetry.
we love her and her poetry. Okay, we love her very much. Now, there is this, and you just did a whole series with her as one of the poets invited in New York, who you spoke with. I think you invited her to speak with you. And this poem, I had to speak about thoughts sort of calling you out. I had a really hard time choosing one poem, but I knew that I can't spend the whole evening reading poetry to Laurie Anderson. Maybe. I would like to.
I would love that. I would just love that.
Okay, well, next time.
Okay.
But this time I will read this one poem, and I know that you want to read one poem of hers too. This poem, you were talking about the word resonance. I'd love you to resonate with this poem in one form or another. It's called Hope and Love. Pardon? Oh, I'm sorry. Jane Hirsch, that's important. Thank you, Mildia, thank you very much.
Yes.
Her name is Jane Hirschfield, and we love her very much. Hope and love. All winter the blue heron slept among the horses. I do not know the customs of herons, do not know if the solitary habit is their way, or if he listened for some missing one. not knowing even that was what he did in the blowing sounds in the dark. I know that hope is the hardest love we carry. He slept with his long neck folded like a letter put away.
It's beautiful. The kind of hope and love put together jars with me a little bit because they're just so incredibly different. I don't know. So, I mean, they certainly are related, but you know, there's one of the things that I find super helpful about AI is the translation engines, because this makes translation, and I'm just mentioning translation now because when you look up hope and you look up love, you're like, whoa, well, they're cousins, but you know, they're really, one is very future oriented and has desire in it. Well, they both have desire, but so in these kind of AI translation forms, they make a kind of whole thought cloud out of a word, and let's say the word love is in the middle of that, and then all of the gradations of love are in that. And then you have the French amour, and it is in another cloud, and amour is in the middle with all of its other things. So you don't have to, what you do then is you align those two clouds. You don't kind of look for a similar word in another language, which almost never works, because they have so many shadings. So you take the two clouds and you align those things, and then you find neighboring words that are, they kind of match that way. And I find that a much more interesting way to do translation. I work with AI a lot, and so
Yeah.
I asked it to write an Emily Dickinson poem about hope, and but it
How
came up
did it
with
turn
something.
out?
Well, it was fairly good. It was fairly good, and then I said, how would you translate that into American Sign Language? And because you know AI doesn't have a body, so you know it's you can play language games with this thing, but they don't have bodies. You know, they're like angels in that way; they have no bodies, but they're projections of our ideas about what language is, what entity is, and so on. But so it came up with also a very good description of how you use your hands to say the word hope. And what it's and it has a kind of combination of purity in the future and stuff. So I think when you translate it with another entity, like we started with this AI character, I think you learn a lot of things. Let me just read. I wanted to read a short one, also by Jane Hirschfield. I was doing a series about, well, it sounds super pretentious to say, but time, like I was trying to write a lot of things about time and different ways of looking at it. And so I did a series of conversations with 4 writers mostly, and Jane Hirschfield was one of them.
The philosopher.
And Benjamin Labatut was another, who wrote When We Cease to Understand the World. If you have not read that book, please do. When We Cease to Understand the World by Benjamin Labatut. I also talked with a Buddhist thinker, and then with an interesting writer named Tom McCarthy, who wrote Remainder. I don't know if any of you know that book. It's a wonderful book. Something falls on him from the sky, and he gets like $1 billion in a settlement. And he can't remember anything, so he decides to build a big building to reconstruct the one moment that he can remember when he was 6. And he was coming home from school, and somebody was playing the piano on the 6th floor, and somebody else was frying onions and liver. And so he's hired all of these actors to reenact this one moment so that he can experience the only thing that he knows again and again. That writer's name is Tom McCarthy, and the book is called Remainder. It's a wonderful book. This is a sweet little poem by Jane called China, and it goes like this. It's really short. Whales follow the whale roads. This sounds like railroads. Whale roads. It's like whale roads. Geese, roads of magnetized air. To go great distance, exactitudes matter. Yet how often the heart that set out for Peru arrives in China? Steering hard, consulting the charts, the whole journey. I really like that just because it's the possibility of arriving at the place and doing the things that you plan is slim, I think, for most people, you know. And you don't even recognize that you're not on that path until you're like somewhere else, you know. She's a writer who can say that in very, very concise, just like a little map, you know, just really quickly. And I really appreciate the haiku part of her writing.
She's also so interested in Japanese literature, which I think you can tell. I mean, you can tell how, and the great translator too. Obviously, it's interesting to talk to you about your romance with technology in some form or fashion. And there's a thought by a Swiss writer named Max Frisch, who I don't think is read very much anymore. He wrote a book called I'm Not Stiller, which I think is fantastic. And he has this thought about technology. You might abhor it, but I like it. He says technology is a way of organizing the universe so that people don't have to experience it.
Yeah. I think that's true about a lot of things. I mean, the way we experience the weather is often the Weather Channel, you know. It's not really going out and kind of making up your own mind about, what's going to happen over there? No, so it's mediated by many things all the time, yeah. I find that kind of fascinating also, you know. And also, you know, technology is fast. It's like our brains, you know, it's like, it will never replace us, never. I mean, to the extent that I understand it, it's extremely crude compared to anything you can compare. Look at our helicopters versus a hummingbird. You know, first of all, helicopters don't self-replicate. You start right there, you know. It's
not yet.
Not yet, no. I don't think they're going to. It's a big engine to do that. It's a very, very big engine to do that. So, you know, I don't think so.
But yet, technology fascinates you, right? I mean, technology is at the heart of a lot of the things you've done for such a long time. You started to use it in inventive ways way before it became fashionable to do so.
Is this a lead into this pillow speaker?
Pardon? Oh, yes. Please.
Okay. I have a lot of equipment when I do stuff. I usually have tons of stuff.
This time we just have our conversation and this.
Yeah, well, I got a little stuck because last night when we did a little event for Dub Lab, which is such a great, such a great organization. You know, just radio is so wonderful, and they're so inventive what they're making there. And so I couldn't bring all my stuff, so I played a very, very old piece, and I'll tell you also something that happened to me when last played this. Speaking of technology, this is a little pillow speaker, and it is made to put in your pillow so that you can learn things while you sleep. Don't waste any time. You can learn German in your sleep, which did not work for me. I woke up just feeling like super paranoid. This is a solution, small technical solution to doing something that I always wanted to do, which is sing like a violin. So, and also because I love stories and love oral things, putting technology in my mouth seems like a good thing to do. So this is how this works. I have to tell you the story I told last night, which was I did this once when I was in Miami and had to decided to do this, and I used an old pillow speaker. I didn't have a new one. So they're not making them anymore anyway, so they're kind of, and it was leaking battery acid. And I put it in my mouth. It got stuck to the roof of my mouth. And I was like, it's eating away the roof of my mouth. I couldn't get it out. So I was in a hotel, and I ran down and I ran out into the street and looking around for I don't know, drugstore or something. Run into this drugstore and this cable's hanging out of my mouth. And I'm like, and this guy just gets a little Q-tip with a little acetone, and he's like, pulls it out. And, no questions asked. He was really nice about it. So, anyway, yes, I go to the extent of loving technology that much.
Loving it and sort of ingurgitating it,
yeah.
right? I mean, sort of with appetite. I mean, there's something in that, I am going to not be used by technology, but I'm going to swallow it in some way.
Yeah, I haven't swallowed this yet. But I know I don't trust technology that much, but I do love it a lot.
No, I mean that line of yours that I I very much like where you say, if you think technology will
that's a cryptologist, yeah.
solve your problems, you don't understand technology and you don't understand your problems. That was said to you by someone?
By a cryptologist, yeah. And I thought that was right on, because, there are just so many ridiculous promises that...
False promises.
What's a false promise? I don't know, just a promise. It's just the promises. A lot of them don't work out. But, it's just salesmanship, of like how much faster, better, sleeker, whatever else, how much better your life is going to be if you just, it happens to always be for sale, It happens to always be, this tech stuff is being recommended by somebody who just happens to have a company that's manufacturing that product, so, it's the American way. Sales, we're really wonderful at it. We're so good at it. And my dad was a salesman, so I appreciated his enthusiasm and his way of also, salesmen have to really have a relationship with the person they're selling to and understand a little bit about what they want, what they might need. So I appreciate that kind of back and forth of how that works.
There's a negotiation that happens.
Empathetic one, because you kind of go, I think what you might
need this.
You might need this. You might not, but it's back and forth.
Yeah, it's kind of the sex appeal of the inanimate.
Yeah.
You have to figure out what somebody might...
And Americans, we're very, very good at this. We're very, very good at this.
What are we less good at?
I wouldn't want to focus on that.
We spoke a little bit about what could be improved. A project you had, which I think is ongoing even if it hasn't happened, that you called Stepping Out.
Oh, yeah.
And I think, given that we're in a college here, I think saying something about that project, I know it hasn't happened, but it's ongoing in a way. It's ongoing, and maybe you could say something about what Stepping Out aims to do.
Yeah, it's a proposal for a project that would be working with students, and the idea was that you get so easily trapped in your own life, and that especially with our situation now, political, economic, climatic, in so many ways, it's very difficult to find ways that we can move other things, and rather than feel helpless, what we can move is our own opinions and our own lives. So I don't know about you, but a lot of people I know are in this mode now of wanting to change something. I want to change something. I want to move into this other thing. I don't know what it is, but I feel it among a lot of my friends and people I know. I don't know if you have the same sensation, but I think it partly comes from the fact that so much of the doomsday stuff is going on that you think, like, what can I really, really do about this? It seems to be going in a direction that's very hard to influence. And we're people who want to make a difference, want to move it some way or another, and sometimes it's very intractable. So this is one way where you can do it for yourself. So it was a proposal for a number of different kinds of students to do something that they had never done, they had no skills in, and to really do it very not brain surgery,
Everything but.
No, there are other buts, plenty of other buts, but because it was over just a short period of a semester, so that would that you would have a chance and to really look at something that would not be something you would do. because you can get trapped in that. And, when people say, that's just not really you, and you're going, no, it is. It is me. It's just, you have me pigeonholed in this thing. That is me. I'm going to try to do this weird thing. And so really go that direction, and really try to, just as an experiment, to see what it would be like to be doing the opposite of, what your normal thing would be, just to see how it would feel, and at the very least, it can give you certain different types of empathy, or even maybe, a whole new way to look at things, and I think, because it's hard to get stuck, and it's boring to be stuck, and then, and people kind of encourage you to stay there in a certain way, like
it's reassuring. It's reassuring.
Yeah, for artists,
this is who you are.
Yeah. No, for artists, if you're a painter, you're not supposed to be making sculpture. What rule is that? And or you look so sloppy today. You're supposed to look how you always do, really pulled together. And so to just be really sloppy or do whatever something that isn't your thing. So that was the idea. So we'll see what happens with it.
In some way, it beckons back to both a song and an interest, which is the interest in experts.
Oh.
Who's an expert? Who's an expert, and what does it quite mean? I mean, I'm always reminded of this wonderful line of Napoleon, who said of one of his generals, he knew everything but nothing else.
Yeah. I mean, that sums up a lot of what we're sort of forced to do in, it's just late capitalist, structure, is things become much more specialized, and we all have our little things that we're
supposed to know.
Yeah, and then it becomes more and more specialized, and so being a generalist is considered being somewhat of a dilettante sometimes. But so it's I think a really important thing to try to push against that, because it's more fun to do things in a bigger way, get a bigger picture than having to do your small part.
I came across this line of
I want to take that back.
Okay.
Yeah, because I think doing your small part can also be really fantastic and intricate and wonderful if you see how it fits into a whole thing. So it's just I get stuck with being called a dilettante generalist. So
just remember, Laurie, whenever anybody mentions that to you, just remember the etymology of the word dilettante.
What is it?
Do you know?
No.
Yeah. So it comes from delectare, which simply means to delight.
It's wonderful.
Not so different from amateur, which means to love.
Yeah, that's so nice. Amateur. That's wonderful. Lover is an amateur. That's great.
And to delight, to delect, to find something delicious.
Yeah. That's using words in a very precise way, which is excellent.
Yeah. I came across this line of Ralph Waldo Emerson, which I really love, and it speaks a little bit to perhaps some of the things we've touched upon. Again, how it resonates with you matters to me greatly. He says, "Let me never fall into the vulgar mistake of dreaming that I am persecuted whenever I am contradicted."
It's too complicated.
No, maybe not.
No.
I mean,
I'm persecuted.
Yeah.
No, I understand that. Things that I can see that you like things that are rubbing against each other.
Why not?
Yeah. that it could be hope and love, and this kind of. Those are two things that are. I do too, and that makes a really good argument, which is, but which can become a little bit academic sometimes if it's not like real enough. It can be just talking about words. And I'm trying to write something now that's so hard.
I want to know about that.
And it's the beginning of it's a doomsday comedy actually, and it's yeah, it has one scene in it, and this is going to be a kind of work with film and music and lots of stories. It will happen for the first time in Manchester, in England, in November, and so I'm trying to work on this because it's largely about time and how we see time. Because in many ways, I think in our country, it's almost like a division of people who see time. I mean, it's a very divided culture at this point, but it's almost like two halves of how you see time. Some people go, we're out of time. It's too late. It's all of the stuff that's happening. It's just too late. And then the other side is, let's go back in time and see when America was great and see what we could do to make it that way again. And so it's like these two things that are out of joint in a very, Hamlet kind of way, that are like, whoa, how are we living? Which way are we going? And so this is a story about building a 21st century ark and what we're going to save from our world and where we're going to take it, what we're going to do with this stuff. So anyway, it's a super complicated story, but the beginning of it is inspired by Salman Rushdie's Satanic Verses, the first scene in that book, which is really beautiful. That there's a plane explodes, breaks apart over London, and these two guys fall down towards London. And as they fall, they have a very, 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 very long conversation. And I love this idea. So in the work that I'm doing, basically the iCloud breaks, and God and the Buddha fall through, in this moment of silence, fall through space and talk about, what time is, and in the sense that so many things about what time is, we take so much for granted, and some of us can live a little bit in the present, many of us live in the future, many of us worry about the past, but in this conversation, God and the Buddha are looking at things like karma, history, progress, where we're going. What is there an end? Why is everyone talking about that kind of? So anyway, it's a very challenging thing to write and a lot of fun to write, but it comes down to really very simple things about when we talk about time. The language in it is so crazy, starting with what time is it?
What time is
what
it?
Time is it? What does it even mean? It's like, I mean, and there are countless examples of a language involving time that make you realize, we don't understand this ocean that we're swimming in very well of time and how we navigate it. Past and future and the present, which is the language of what we were talking about in terms of Zen time, is haiku. Haiku is always about the present. It's not saying this thing is like that thing. It's not the language of metaphor. It's just one of my favorites. What is that? Spring thaw. A coughing fit overwhelms the puppeteer. It's not, a coughing fit that's like another thing. It's just a coughing fit overwhelms the puppeteer in spring thaw time. You can see it, you don't have to compare it. Your mind is already busily comparing it to other things, just going, what does that mean? That's what I love about haiku. It forces you to stop living in a comparative world, or saying that's better than that, or that's earlier than that, or that's different than that. It just gives you one thing.
It's here.
It's here. It's now.
It's here now.
Yeah.
What time is it?
Yeah. What time is it?
Then the idea of, not quite.
Okay, we have another
We still have
minute.
a bit of time.
Okay.
Not that much time, but some time. Serving time, also. I think serving time.
Serving time. Yes.
And
Serving time.
you've
Doing
been
time.
interested in doing
Taking
time,
time.
serving time. Time different in different spaces.
Mm-hmm.
Serving time makes me think also of incarceration.
Same as doing time, or the sentence, which is life. Yeah. That's some heavy grammar.
Yeah, no.
The life sentence.
I mean, to make things a little bit lighter for a minute,
Oh, why?
a practice you learned, which I'd love you to unpack a little bit, because I feel like everybody should hear this. You speak about it often, but I think the more people who understand what this actually embodies and means, the better off we might be individually. Practice feeling sad without being sad. Incredibly, concision, precision, makes me think of a number of philosophers I've loved who deeply believe that, in fact, a form of wisdom is, Montaigne will speak about perpetual joyousness as a form of wisdom. But
Yes, that is a form of wisdom.
Yeah, and that
perpetual joy.
Perpetual joy, or a number of different thinkers have thought of that. But here, this practice, feel sad without being sad.
Yeah, feeling and being are and obviously the point is that if you build up a wall between yourself and all the sad things in the world, you're living in that wall, and it's not a realistic place, because there's a lot of sadness and a lot of horrible things going on. His whole point, he basically is, and this is a guy named Mingyur Rinpoche. He's a teacher who lives in Nepal, and he is, according to neurologists at the University of Wisconsin, the happiest man in the world. He just put a whole bunch of, sensors on his brain and played some pretty horrendous things to him. This is how they measure your let's say, sadness quotient, or your reactability quotient is another thing to say, because it's very hard to measure sadness, obviously, because you can cry and not be sad pretty easily. For you crocodiles. And so he's basically a person who is able to absorb things and resist the becoming them. And this teaching, I think, is fundamental, because I am only, I'm an optimist for a couple of reasons, but I'm an optimist for a very stupid reason, and a very simple one, which is you have a better life if you're an optimist. You have a happier life. That's my reason for it. It's not a reason. You can come up with a reason for being a pessimist. The world is falling apart. It's falling apart. How are you going to react to that? Are you going to fall apart? So it is a way to understand how to absorb what's going on and be responsive without pushing it away or pretending it's not there or being sort of fake happy about it, or whatever, many ways we have of doing it. But he also talks a lot about love, since we started this talking about love and hope. And he's hopeless, but that doesn't, mean that he just said that, the whole world is about love. Everything is about love. Even suicide is about love, because it's the desire to be free. And, so he has this understanding of what humans are, that is, I find very profound, and that's why I'm his student, I'm one of his many, many students, because I think being a student, and for you, and I'm happy we're here at a university, being a student is a wonderful thing. It's a wonderful thing to just realize, how much you don't know, and that it's possible to learn a thing or two. We were just talking about that earlier, because you were saying, what were you saying you wanted to learn?
What was I saying about
You
what?
wanted to learn.
Oh, no, I said that, and you said that I was close to that already. I said that among the things I would like to do when I grow up is become a psychoanalyst. and you said that I didn't have a far way to go, but I'm not sure about that.
No, I'm pretty sure about it.
Yeah.
Tell me about your mother.
When you were at the New York New York Public Library, you had a conversation with John. John, the Icelandic writer, and he has a question for you. And he sent me this question from Iceland this morning. And this is his question. He said, if we had a Laurie scale at our disposal.
Scale?
Scale, I'll come to it, you'll understand. And I think we need one. Then what would it measure? He is meaning we have a Richter scale, we have a Hertz scale, we have Fahrenheit scale. What would a Laurie scale measure?
What was your answer?
It's your answer. I have no idea.
Oh, God. Hopefully, the ability not to be here.
Not to be right here.
Not to be anywhere. Not to be anywhere. Not to kind of go, oh, I am this, I am measuring this, I am. I am happiest when I am no one. And this is, so maybe it could be a no one scale. How would it be no one? Maybe, something like that.
Reminds me of an Emily Dickinson poem, but yes.
John, S-J-O-N, is the name of this Icelandic writer who wrote something called, is it The Blue Fox? Did he write?
Yeah.
The Blue Fox. And he's hunting a blue fox. It's really, in Iceland, it's full of snow, and it goes on for many days. It's a really beautiful short story book, and so he gets into telepathic communication with the fox, and the fox is agreeing when she will let him kill her. It's a really beautiful thing about hunting and animals and people, and it's really great. Somebody actually just sent. Do you mind if I read an email?
To yourself or to the...
To people.
No, because if you were just going to read an email while our conversation is going,
it's not that I'm busily doing
poorly
my email,
of...
but
but please read it.
Okay, somebody sent me this morning, and I would like to read it to you because it's about pigeons, and in New York, I don't know, are there a lot of pigeons here? Yeah. And people don't like pigeons that much. They're called, I don't know. But I got this morning, and I really, anyway, here it is. My friend grew up in New England where they have pigeons. Apparently, they also hate them there. He was always saying bad things about pigeons until I pointed something out that he never thought of before. We domesticated pigeons. They are nearly all over the world because humans brought them there. And they were more than pets. They carried messages, people raised them, they lived spoiled lives as honored human companions for centuries. Then we got telephones, and we threw them out like trash. Literally, we threw them away. Their species had already been fully domesticated, and they could not survive in the wild. They lost all their survival instincts during the centuries that they lived caged by people. That's why they live in cities with people instead of in the forest somewhere. It's our fault. And not only did we throw them away, but now humans curse them as winged rats, casting them as pests. But they don't know how to live without us, and their instincts tell them that they should trust us. So they continue to come up to humans and beg for food, because it's the only survival skill left in their genes. They love us because they were bred by us to feel that way, and yet we hate them. And look at this picture of this pigeon. It's a pigeon huddled in a corner, or just around with all this garbage around. And I was like, oh my God, it's like, so I have this feeling about pigeons. I'm not really that fond of them, but I suddenly want to go and just get pigeon food and feed all the pigeons,
Take care of them.
Yeah, take care of them, because, you get in a situation like this and you don't really realize that you caused it, and you're kind of like, and so taking I find that something like this, it reminds me to take responsibility for things is refreshing.
Laurie, in closing, coming back to the animals in some way, I told you that I would surprise you with something at the end, a little moment for everyone here to see a moment from Heart of a Dog. I saw it again, and it struck me so powerfully. I mean, so deeply, for so many reasons. And what you say about it, to escape the trap of experiencing what I expect, you speak about that, and I find that very interesting. And then your own relationship, so beautifully expressed to your mother, a mother who, I don't think people say this, even if they feel this. Again, we're going back to saying and feeling and being. A mother who perhaps you didn't love, and who perhaps didn't love you. And when I was watching Heart of a Dog again, it struck me that what you were trying to express had been expressed in a different way in the afterword that Camus wrote to The Stranger. He wrote that afterword for American readers, trying to explain a little bit what The Stranger was about. And the first lines, which you may remember, is, "A long time ago, I summed up the outsider, the stranger, the outsider, in a sentence which I realize is extremely paradoxical. In our society, any man who doesn't cry at his mother's funeral is liable to be condemned to death."
Ooh, that's
powerful, no? And so maybe you might say a few words about Heart of a Dog and that moment in the film.
Which moment are you talking about?
The very end.
At the end, okay.
The very end.
Okay.
Which is so.
I can't remember my own work very well, but I think it's. I think it has to do with this thing called the mother meditation.
Yes.
Okay.
And I've looked at.
We're going to look at this.
We're going to watch it.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay. All right, then I won't spoil it for you. But I will say that not everybody. Since we started this talking about love and hope, not everyone knows how to love, and those of us who had. I mean, one of the great things about parents is you have two of them. And so the odds are better, so that if you don't get along with one, maybe you will with the other. So this is I do think love is an instinct, but it's also a skill, and not all of us have it. You know, not all of us know how to do it, and my mother did not, and no fault of hers. As you know, this tends to be a generational thing. You really have to kind of have it to get what it is. Unfortunately, I had a father who did know how to do that. But anyway, so this is a little bit about her.
It's about her, it's about your dog. It's about also what it means to remember and the missing parts and what comes back to your memory. And what comes back after you have tried to retrieve the memory that at that moment is lost.
Yeah.
Let's watch it.
Okay.
They die in the winter in Chicago. The cold takes them away. It sweeps in off the lake and off they go. Has done for centuries now. Some of them died in the stockyards in Chicago, or in backyards, full of rusted jungle gyms and old stoves and snow. Some in overheated houses out in the winter woods. Others in their duck blinds, or in their leaking boats when they sank in one of the icy Great Lakes. It was in the winter, last winter, when I heard that my mother was dying, and so I had to go, and I was kind of worried, so I talked to Father Pierre, who's a priest, a converted Egyptian Jew, a playboy who loves elegant things and has a book collection of 30,000 books. And he's such a smart guy, and so I said, "Listen, I have a really big problem. I'm going to see my mother, and she's dying, but I don't love her." And Father Pierre said, "Okay, well, just bring her some flowers and tell her you've always cared about her." And I thought, I can do that. Besides, you really don't want to lie to someone who's dying. But when I got there, they were rushing her around in a gurney, and I didn't have time to get the flowers, and it was loud and confusing, and there wasn't a single moment to say, "You know, I've always cared about you." And then all of a sudden, she was dead. And there's a Buddhist exercise called the Mother Meditation, and you use it when you can't feel anything. You try to find a single moment when your mother truly loved you, without a single reservation. And you focus on that moment. And then you imagine that you've been everyone's mother, and they've been yours. And I looked for that moment, but it just kept slipping away. So, which way do we go? Thanks. No, it's been a privilege, and you and your family, and just one more question. Did you ever really love me? We lived by a lake, and every winter it froze. We skated everywhere. One evening, I was coming home from the movies, and I was pushing my little brothers, Craig and Phil, in a stroller. I had decided to take them over to the island to look at the moon that was just coming up. But as we got close to the island, the ice broke, and the stroller sank into the dark water. And my first thought was, Mom's gonna kill me. And I remember the knitted balls on their hats as they disappeared under the black water. So I ripped off my jacket and I jumped into the freezing water and dove down and got Craig and pulled him up and threw him on the ice. Then I dove down again, but I couldn't find the stroller. It had slipped down the muddy bank, further down under the ice. Then I dove in again, and I finally found the stroller, and Phil was strapped in, and I ripped the strap off and pulled him out and pushed him up onto the ice. Then I ran home, one twin under each arm, frozen and screaming. I ran in the door, and I told my mother what had happened, and she stood there and said, "What a wonderful swimmer you are. And I didn't know you were such a good diver." And when I think of her now, I realize that was the moment I had been trying to remember. "Tell the animals," she said. "Tell all the animals." Is it a pilgrimage? Towards what?
I haven't seen that in a long time. Although I have thought about that story, and I was part of a thing that I did a couple of weeks ago here. You talked about that story. And yeah, it is, it's interesting to see that film because there's, I had forgotten how I had done the visuals, which are really like some kind of really, it is old home movies just looped, and you know, those are my brothers and sisters there, so it's kind of eerie to see them. And also my mother, it's her skating around. She was a person who also, she loved to read, and she loved books so much. She was part of a generation of women who really probably should have been a CEO of a major corporation. You know, she was very, very smart, but instead she decided to have 8 kids. So it was a big job for her. And she was, but she taught us all that books were treasures. And I remember waking up in the middle of the night and you know, at 4, and I would be hearing some sounds, and she would be there reading. She would read all night. And so she was, taught me that there's just amazing worlds in books, and for that I'm very, very grateful. So it was it was love. It was a kind of, let me show you how to love books and all the things that are in them. So.
But also, what strikes me so powerfully is the reaction you expected her to have.
Yeah.
And
well, it would be a typical reaction
right.
of any parent who's entrusted their kids to take care of little ones, and it would just be it would be the end of the world if you let your little brothers drown.
Right.
You know, that would just, you know, so she saw that. She knew that. She, you know, in that moment, in that pause that she took of to choose what to say to a kid who's just like, oh my God, you know, she just said that. And that was, taught me a lot about words. And that words, I mean, we can think of many of the great words that have been said by people, you know, only thing to fear is fear itself. You know, it changes you. it gives you hope, back to hope, to use language in a certain way, to change people's minds. It's a very, very powerful tool, because it feels like thinking. It's not really, but it's I think one of the most powerful weapons as well.
Laurie Anderson, thank you very much.
Thanks, Paul. Thanks for coming.